You are exactly the kind of mother who never understands a child's heart. Dorothy gripped the cake knife tightly, casting a cold, sweeping glance at Oliver and me. The air was thick with tension. I crouched down and picked up Oliver, who clung tightly to my shoulders. Today, her favoritism and indifference would be exposed under every gaze. I took a deep breath, restraining the anger that threatened to burst out. "What did you just say?" I asked, forcing myself to remain calm. "Don't pretend, Amanda," Dorothy sneered. "Oliver doesn't understand these things. Every year during the holidays, you waste money on these special gifts for him. He couldn't care less. But my grandchildren? Every gift is carefully chosen and meticulously calculated. Do you understand? Carefully chosen." She tapped the pile of wrapping paper and toy catalogs on the table, her voice dripping with mockery. Brett sat at the other end of the table, sipping his coffee, his face slightly uncomfortable. "Mom, I think you're going too far." "Too far? I'm not too far, I'm just realistic. Blind children don't need expensive things. They can touch and hear, but they don't need visual enjoyment." Dorothy put down the cake knife and walked to the window, blocking the sunlight behind her as if using her posture to dominate us. I walked over and lifted Oliver from the high chair, feeling the slight tremor in his small body. "Oliver can hear, Mom," I whispered. His hands clutched my shoulders. I knew he understood me and felt the sting of her words. "You're always like this," Dorothy sneered, overly concerned for a blind child. "Be realistic, he doesn't understand." The kitchen air froze. Oliver reached out, lightly touching the vase on the table for support. I saw his shoulders droop slightly, yet a spark of stubbornness shone in his eyes. At that moment, I decided, I would no longer let Dorothy trample over us. I still remembered when Oliver was 7. He was astonishingly intelligent, able to discern subtle changes in the house by sound and touch, even remembering every word said by each relative. Yet holidays had always been his most vulnerable time. On his 5th birthday, Oliver sat at the table full of anticipation. Dorothy handed him a gift, a cheap plastic truck, costing less than $5. I clearly remembered his small hand holding that truck. He tried to smile and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma." But I could feel the disappointment in his heart. "He won't care," Dorothy said to me, her voice sharp like a knife. "He can't see, so why waste money on real gifts?" Oliver was not without feelings, he simply never complained. Every holiday, he masked his disappointment with polite smiles. I tried to make Brett understand, but he always defended his mother. "She means well. She just doesn't understand Oliver's special needs." But I saw more clearly. Dorothy had never tried to understand Oliver's world. She would spend 3 weeks selecting gifts for Logan and Emma, visiting 4 stores, checking for the latest toys and equipment. For Oliver, it was whatever was convenient at the checkout. Easter, Christmas, birthdays, always the same pattern. The humiliation and inequality built up my anger. Every casual remark of, "You don't understand," every polite but disappointed, "Thank you," from Oliver, reminded me we had to make Dorothy understand that her prejudice could no longer harm us. I began planning, not impulsively, but calmly. Oliver could remember every detail, gifts, prices, every dismissive word. I just needed to find a stage where he could present the truth in his own way. The opportunity came 3 months later at the family gathering Dorothy had been planning for 2 years. The community center was booked, 93 relatives confirmed. She wanted to show how thoughtful and wonderful a grandmother she was, arranging performances for each child, Logan with the violin, Emma with dance. Oliver, usually overlooked, was seated aside. I crouched by Oliver and whispered, "Are you ready? Can you remember everything we practiced?" He nodded, a confident smile on his face. I remember every gift, every word, every smile. I held his hand tightly, knowing he was ready to show Dorothy that her prejudice could no longer hide from everyone. "Enough, Oliver. Stop talking." Dorothy's voice trembled as she tried to interrupt. She stood in the center of the dining room, clutching the tablecloth, her face pale. I didn't respond, merely nodding slightly to let Oliver continue. He straightened his small back, smiled, and spoke clearly and firmly, "Okay, Grandma. I just want to share my memories." He slowly began recounting. "Last Christmas, Logan got a remote-controlled car worth $200. Emma got the same. Grandma visited 3 stores and spent 3 weeks picking them out. I got a $3 plastic truck. Grandma said, 'You can't see, so there's no need to spend good money.'" The room fell silent. Uncle Roy's fork paused midair. Helen stood up, her eyes wide with shock. "Then, on my birthday, Grandma," Oliver continued, still bright and clear, "Logan and Emma each received a $300 bike, specially ordered from an expensive store. I only got a $15 bookstore gift card. You said blind kids don't need real gifts." Dorothy's lips quivered as if pricked by needles, but she tried to maintain control. This is just. I only wanted what's best for you. And Easter, Oliver looked up, gently tapping the table. Logan and Emma got baskets full of toys, candy, and small money. Grandma spent days preparing them. I only got a small bag of jelly beans. You said visual things didn't matter for me. Helen's hands clenched the table edge, her eyes blazing. You actually gave him $3? Just because he can't see? You don't understand his world. Dorothy's voice cracked, her hands trembling. Oliver smiled faintly, his tone free of resentment. But I remember every gift. I remember every word, every smile. Every time you said I didn't understand, said my imagination was useless, I remembered it all. I imagined them, Grandma. I see them with my hands and heart, and hear them with my ears. Even if you say it doesn't count, it's all special to me. The room fell into a deathly silence. Enough, Oliver. Dorothy finally lost control. She strode to the table, pointing a shaking finger at him. You're insulting me. You're. Helen stepped forward, her voice as sharp as a blade. Dorothy, did you really think no one would notice? You said you wouldn't waste money on a blind child, that his imagination was useless, but we all see your prejudice and selfishness. Roy put down his fork, glaring at her. I always thought you were our pride, but you made your own grandson feel neglected and inferior just to save a few bucks. I'm ashamed of you. Every pair of eyes in the room fixed on her. She could not lie, nor defend herself. Oliver continued, I remember every Christmas, every Easter, every birthday. I learned to observe everyone's joy and disappointment. I learned that love and care are not just about material things, but about thoughtfulness. I am grateful for everyone, Grandma, even you, even your neglect. Because I learned to see the world in my own way. The air was almost frozen. Brett finally stood, his voice low but firm. Mom, your favoritism and disregard for Oliver must stop. If you can't change, you will no longer be allowed in our lives. Dorothy's face went pale, her finger trembling as she pointed at Brett. You can't. I've done so much for them. Done what? Spend money on expensive gifts to show off as a good grandmother, while ignoring your own grandson? Helen snapped. Do you think that covers your discrimination against Oliver? Dorothy choked, her voice breaking. You don't understand. I just wanted the best for them. You wanted the best for them, but never for Oliver. Oliver smiled, his voice calm as water. I understand what you mean by good intentions, but I know it wasn't for me. Every time you chose to ignore me, you told me my world didn't matter. Dorothy began trembling, crouching slightly as if seeking help. I don't want to hurt you. The dining room seemed to freeze. 93 relatives' gazes were like swords aimed at her. Cousin Janet nearly ground her teeth. You're a monster, Dorothy. A real monster. Oliver lifted his head slightly and summarized gently. I know you never meant to hurt me. You just didn't understand. But now, you can't ignore me anymore. Because everyone can see. Dorothy trembled, her voice choked. Please, forgive me. I'll change. I'll change. Helen coldly said, this time, you must change. Otherwise, you will lose all trust, all respect from the family. Brett came to my side, holding my hand gently, his eyes firm. He finally saw his mother's favoritism and mistakes. Oliver smiled, reaching for the ribbons on the table, and softly said, I forgive you, Grandma. I hope you can learn to see me, not just my blindness, but my heart. Dorothy slumped in her chair, trembling. No one spoke in the room, only Oliver's voice echoed, innocent yet powerful, exposing all her hypocrisy and indifference. That day, Oliver, in his own way, left no place for favoritism, neglect, or selfishness to hide. Everyone in the room saw her true self, and they saw Oliver's wisdom, resilience, and kindness. Dorothy could no longer mask her prejudice with coldness, and Oliver finally gained the respect and fairness he deserved in his family.